Hey, welcome. The first time I did a field trip out here to Isabees, I could not wait to come back again. So I'm back here and meeting again with Jane Sueme, and we're going to talk today about ways to maximize your honey output in your hives, because most of us, that's what we want. We're looking to get as much honey production as we can. So I'm going to talk with Jane. Jane, but you have quite an educational background, because I know you've got at least two Master Beekeeping certificates?
Two. Working on a third.
Working on a third. So
yes.
I know one of them is prestigious.
Montana was the first, and that was just because it was the first one that was online. And because I have a beekeeping business, I didn't feel like I could leave to go take master course. So I did that online, and then Cornell was also online, though I went up there to test, which was really interesting.
Really?
Ithaca's a very beautiful part of New York. Yeah, I enjoyed that.
And you're working on a third?
Eastern Apiculture Conference. I tested last year, and I passed 3 out of 4. So I have the 4th test I have to pass.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, just a little bit of knowledge going on here, which is why I like to come out and talk with Jane. In fact, and I go back, I've been shopping here at least 10 years, I think, going on that, and I can't believe how much I'd walk away, or I wouldn't walk away, I'd drive away and think, man, I can't believe how much I learned in just that short 10, 15-minute period. So that's why, and I cherish the relationship we've built over the years. It's been a lot of fun, and I've grown a lot. But so let's talk about how can we maximize our output from our bees. So Jane's got, I think, 4 or 5 things we're going to talk about. So what's the first one, Jane?
Well, let me first say that I started my beekeeping adventure about 20 years ago, and at the time I didn't think I cared about honey at all. What I share with people is, in my 2nd year, I had enough to harvest that I was bottling and sharing it with friends and family and whoever, coworkers. And of course, they would ask, so how are the bees doing? And then you get to talk about this thing that you're so passionate about. And then I was hooked on beekeeping and then hooked on honey when every year I would sell out. So every subsequent year I would say, I've got to produce more, right? How do I produce more? Because I will sell all of it. So I really am focused on maximizing honey production.
Sure.
So the first thing that I share with folks is the biggest hit to honey production is a colony that swarms on the nectar flow. And I'm saying that because this year, 2025, is a little different because of all the rain. The main flow has been delayed and pushed back. So folks who had swarms in early mid-April, even maybe early May, those colonies have had time to recover their population, so that now that we're in a nectar flow at the mid and end of June, hopefully into July, I think people who had swarms this year are in a position, hopefully, to get honey production.
Well, let me support that. And I was going to talk to you earlier, but I'll mention it here. And I think I told you before, I built just lots and lots of nook boxes, and I have lots of nooks that I use as support staff, is the best way to put it. It's like, oh, I need this, and I pull out, and if I use up a nook, I'm not impacting my hives. I've got 2 nooks that were swarms from my hives, and they were big swarms to begin with, but put them in a 5-frame box, came back like 10 days later, full. Like, okay, so I slapped another one on top, full, like 10 days, and so it's like, wow. So I said, well, just for the fun of it, let's toss on a honey super. So I tossed on a honey super. And in fact, that's the hives that I used in my wax or no wax video, if you want to go back and check that out. I think it's over here. But it's like 10 days later, full. I'm like, what the heck? So I kept throwing honey supers on what was a swarm, And now I'm to the point where it's almost dangerous because I think it's like 7 or 8 boxes high. So anyway, that's my next weekend project. But it's like that swarm just was like crazy, and then it's got a sister companion to it. They're racing to see how many, So, but I have to switch them over because I'm running out of shallow Nook supers. Anyway, but support that statement. It's like, wow, some of them are just gone crazy.
Right. Which just proves the idea that every year is different, right? And this year, again, because of the delay, I think that hives that swarmed are posed to produce honey. But as a general statement, we suggest that the biggest thing that you can do to protect your honey crop is to keep your colony from swarming, especially on or just prior to the nectar flow, because if you lose 50 to 80% of your workforce and then the nectar flow hits, you don't have bees out there foraging for it. So
50 to 80% less bees.
Right.
Basically.
Right. So that would be my first thing. And there are a number of ways to do swarm management, which I'm sure you've done videos on. My favorite lately that I feel like I have developed my process for is the Demarest method, and I have a couple of things on that on my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
The second thing is kind of obvious to people who have drawn comb, but the amount of honey that you sacrifice to get them to build a wax on blank foundation. So if you are able to uncap and spin out and have, so retain that comb for the bees to work next year. And what I mean by retain is don't let it sit out in water. Don't let it get rained on because it'll get moldy. Don't let wax moths attack it. Don't let it sit out and, whatever. It's gold in some respects. People call drawn comb.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you can preserve and keep that and reuse it, the more drawn comb you have to use in subsequent years is just going to increase your production over having to start with blank foundation every year. Right.
And you talked about blank foundation and the amount of honey it requires bees to produce that wax. I don't remember the exact, is it 5 pounds of honey to 1 pound of wax?
I think 5 or 10. It's somewhere between 5 and 10 pounds of honey you sacrifice to get a box of drawn comb or a couple boxes of drawn comb.
Exactly. But again, as Jane said, it is golden, absolutely golden to have that drawn comb.
Yes. So the third thing, which is not a huge thing, but again, I'm just trying to get nuggets of things that I can do. The third thing I talk about, I call it a -1 configuration. And the reason why I say that is because I run both 10 frame and 8 frame hives. So a -1 means instead of 10 frames, I'm running 9. And in an 8 frame box, I'm running 7. And you space them out, and it's, you usually do that when you have drawn comb, because once they build it out to the width of the frame, for the most part, they will fill that and make it a little fat and then cap it. So when you have drawn comb, then you can go to a -1 configuration, and I was told that for every frame that you take out, because there are some people that do 8 in a 10 frame, and I've tried it and it's too much mess. But you gain 5 pounds of honey. So if you have 10 frames and you weigh that and you yield 35 pounds of honey, if you go to a 9 frame configuration, you'll get more like 37 to 40.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
Because they draw it out to bee space. So they always recognize bee space.
Okay.
So as long as, and the other art to this is putting the next box on at the right time, and sometimes they rock and roll faster than we recognize, and they really do make them fat.
Yeah.
And then they're starting to put honey in the gaps in between because you are late getting another box on.
Wanky comb.
Right. But if you really get the process right, they will draw the comb to bee space. And so when you have a -1 frame in there, they're just making all of those frames thick,
Yeah.
which also allows for, I think, clean removal of the cappings. When the comb is only to the width of the frame or even concave a little bit, it's difficult, more time consuming to get it, and you're not yielding as much. If you let the bees make the frame, draw it out, fill it, cap it thicker or wider than the frame, then you have a nice, I call it meat on the bone,
Yeah.
to cut off to give you a nice clean cut to spin in the extractor, and it goes much quicker.
Yeah.
And you get more honey.
But the key is that you use drawn comb
Yes.
to do that first.
Yeah, you wouldn't go to 9 frames in a 10-frame box on blank foundation. You have to start with 10 because that just as like in the brood boxes, you start with 10 because the design of the frame, when they're all pushed together, is bee space. So the frame allows you to get the bees to draw the comb correctly. And then once they're drawn out, then you can take one away, space them out evenly, and for the most part, they leave it alone.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting.
Moving on?
Yeah, number 4.
Ventilation.
Yeah.
So ventilation in our area is very important. And I know there's this whole debate about winterizing bees, ventilated versus insulated. But I'm talking about in the summer when you've got strong hives, there's lots of bees, lots of heat, we are in a humid area, you want your honey cured and capped so you can extract it. So to help facilitate that, we love screened bottom boards. That -1 configuration kind of opens it up a little bit for airflow and movement, and screened inner covers. And screened inner covers, so your inner cover is really close to your honey supers, right? And I think that allows the quicker curing of your honey. Does a couple other things. It's kind of a robbing screen, and it's cool that you can take off the lid and look down and see your bees before you're exposed to them because of that screen. But for honey curing, I think it's a nice tool.
And what telescoping cover do you use then?
So it can be used with any telescoping cover. The screen inner cover that we sell here at Isabees, on the long side, it's cut out with a little like a boat shape. So that's how they draw air.
Okay, underneath the cover. Okay.
Yeah, so if they're fanning, they can pull air, from the side, from the long sides.
Sure.
Where most inner covers, these days are usually notched. Inner covers come with a notch,
Right.
and it's at the short end, so that you can push your telescoping cover to close off that notch or knot. The screened inner covers are on the long side, so you can't close it off, but because it's 1/8-inch hardware cloth, robbing bees can't get in.
Yeah.
Other potential pests can't get in. It's really nice.
Interesting. And I am really not that familiar with that, but I'm really interested in that. I was kind of riding the line when I extracted on Saturday, pulling out frames and testing them, and it's like, it's 16.5, 17, 17.5, 16.5, and then I come across the box, it's like 18.5, it's like, okay, that's pushing the edge. And then I started thinking about, because I label my boxes that I pull off so I know which hives they came off of, just so I've got an idea of it's like, okay, well, why was that like that? And as you're talking about that, it reminds me that particular hive is more sealed off than any other hive I have.
Okay,
And that
so maybe that's it.
could be it.
Could help.
Interesting.
That could help.
See, you learn something every time you come to Isabees.
All right, our last one is called an upper entrance.
Okay.
And it is a device that I use when early on I see that I'm going to have an above average producer. Call them my rock stars, right? So when I identify, man, they are really putting it on, I will, because I don't like queen excluders per se. Generally, I don't use them. But with an upper entrance, I use a queen excluder and this upper entrance that provides a landing area and it allows the foraging bees to bypass, they don't have to go through the brood area. They bypass the brood area, they bypass the queen excluder, they come in this upper entrance and go up and deposit their nectar. So it's an efficiency thing. And I think it also helps with the curing. So if you have an upper entrance right at the bottom of your supers and your screened inner cover at the top of your supers, there's your airflow for your honey curing. The other thing I would say about that I like with an upper entrance is that the bees that are coming home with pollen, so pollen is required for the royal jelly, which is essentially baby food. I feel like the bees that are coming home with just pollen are able to go through the queen excluder easier. It really doesn't knock it off, but their abdomens aren't big and heavy with nectar.
Yeah.
So I feel like an upper entrance allows the foraging age bees to not damage themselves going through a queen excluder, and the bees that have pollen can easily go through the queen excluder and go down.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
So I think the combination of the ventilation and upper entrance for just bypassing having to go through the hive just really makes for efficient work on the bees' part, which should yield more honey.
Sure, sure. And I think you told me earlier you have upper entrances on a couple of hives here at Isabees.
One. Which we can look at.
Which, yeah, I'd say let's take a look at that. Just so you've got an idea, if an upper entrance is a foreign idea to you, they are something that I have on and off utilized because I keep going back and forth about whether it does or it doesn't. But I tend to lean now toward, because I'm running single deeps, I tend to like the upper entrance because of that fact that they need to get to the honey, and I've got lots of super stacked up. So it makes it easier. They're not making that extra trip up through the deep box. But
and with the single, you're more likely to get the queen to move up. So you want a queen excluder.
Oh no, I've got stock in the queen excluder company. I got a lot of queen excluders, but in the single deeps, it's absolutely crucial, and especially, I mean, first thing in the spring, you've got to have it there. And I've made that mistake on a couple hives where I, put a super on, forgot to put the queen excluder on, went back 3 or 4 days later, filled with brood. It's like, okay, well, I guess it's a single and a half now.
Yeah.
So, well, let's go outside. It's only 95 degrees and heat index of 106, so I'm looking forward to this. Let's go take a look.
Okay, sounds good.
Now, this is a cool setup. It's a really cool setup. You've got a lot of propola boxes, right?
Those are actually waxed in.
Okay.
There's some folks here in St. Louis that are doing that.
Okay. They look cool.
Yeah.
So talk about the upper entrance there, and as you can see, it is hopping. There is just a lot of activity there. There's as much, if not more, activity up top than down at the bottom.
Right. Well, and I'm forcing that because at the bottom, especially if they are already habituated to the bottom. I closed it down. There's only one hole open on that mouse guard for drones to escape because they can't get through the queen excluder.
Okay.
So drones have to have an escape, but other than that, I don't want the foraging bees using the bottom, so it's restricted.
Oh, okay.
So I'm training them to the upper entrance,
Now, would you ever open that back up?
When I take the supers off. Yeah, but not if I'm trying to do what I described, which is to get all of the foraging bees to bypass the brood area. Then I have to keep the bottom restricted.
But that's also the beauty of the screen bottom board.
Yes.
Because you're still getting air into that section of the hive.
Right. Right.
The nurse bees are just doing their thing in the box.
Yes. So the brood area is still cranking the way it should be, and hopefully it's just an efficiency thing to get the foragers right at the super level instead of having to fight their way through 2 boxes.
Sure.
It is used in conjunction with a queen excluder, and this is under the telescoping cover is the screened inner cover.
Okay, and that's the screened inner cover.
Yeah. So you see how the airflow cutout is on the long side. where most inner covers have a notch on the short side, and this is 1/8 inch hardware cloth. So again, this is, on the top of the stack of supers, so they're trying to bring air from the landing deck, I call it a landing deck, the upper entrance, through here to help cure the honey. And as I mentioned, the other nice things about it are robbing bees can't get through this.
Right.
And if you wanted to put this on kind of a normal height hive and show a family member or somebody who came to your apiary who wants to see your bees, take off the telescoping cover, they can literally stand here and look through this and look down into the hive. So it's kind of fun.
And they're not going ballistic.
Right, and they're not coming out at you.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Excellent. And it's the same, flip it over.
Yeah.
So it's the same depth as a regular inner cover.
From this side, yes.
Right. So you're not going to get comb built up in there. It's
correct.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So that's what's on top of the hives that are, 3 and 4 high are definitely getting a screened inner cover. And if I see that they're bearding or if they look like they're having problems ventilating, then I'll put a screened inner cover on. And I usually leave this now on through robbing season, which could be October, but I won't overwinter. I tried overwintering with these, and I felt like it was too much, way too much ventilation. So, but definitely as a robbing screen, I leave it on through that season.
Which that's where we would arm wrestle, because my hives are so tight in the winter that there's nothing coming out of them. So that's why I wouldn't put that on. But as I've say all along my videos, it's what works for you is what you need to do.
Right. And even every yard can be different. I mean, you and I both have multiple yards.
Yeah.
And I will say that there are some yards that I have to do certain management that I don't have to do in other yards. And a lot of that is sun versus shade.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Related.
Excellent. Well, hey, I want to say thanks, Jane. Appreciate your time today.
Sure.
It's just always fun to chat with you. Appreciate you guys watching, as always. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do. Certainly helps us out, and likes are good too, because it's nice to be liked, isn't it?
Sure.
Anyway, thanks so much, and as always, happy beekeeping. We'll see you next time.